So Shadeur Sanders fell from the first round projected pick to a 5th round pick. There are a lot of lessons to be learned from that for high school athletes and college athletes. We'll cover that next on the ProZone. Welcome to the ProZone. I'm Matt Roberts. So Shadeur Sanders was projected from Colorado University, was projected to go in the first round by a lot of draft analysts. They figured he'd go very high. Some had him at QB1, like Mel Kiper. Some QB2, but majority of them were first round somewhere in the draft. Okay? But he fell to the 5th round, which surprised a lot of people. It became a big stink, if you remember, during the NFL draft. It was a big front page stink. Even his father, Deion Sanders, expected Shadeur to go somewhere in the first 4 picks. It was between Hunter and Shadeur. In this Barstool Sports interview, here's basically what Sanders said.
Where do you predict Shadeur and Travis going in the draft?
Top 4.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
Anywhere from 1 through 4. One of them is going to be 1.
That's what I'm talking about.
One of them is going to be
Speaking
1.
into existence.
And the latter one would not go behind 4. Now, all this is subjective because I know where I kind of want them to go. And let's not forget shallow, okay? But I know where I want them to go. So there's certain cities that ain't going to happen.
Okay. So Sanders, one of them expected him to go 1 through 4, but Shadeur fell to the 5th round. So why did he fall to the 5th round? Well, there are a lot of lessons to be learned from this for high school athletes, for other college athletes. With the transfer portal, it's getting harder and harder for high school athletes to be seen by colleges. The college coaches are going to load up their rosters with players on the portal, more established players. So you have to find a way to set yourself apart. Well, one to do that is not to put that on a website, some recruiting website, and hope that they find you, because coaches don't go to recruiting websites as a rule. They just don't. They don't have to, especially the bigger schools. You need to get exposure. You need to make sure that you're seen by these coaches. Now, you can develop your own resume. Work on your strength, work on your playmaking, work on your academics, work on your discipline. That's great. But you can have the greatest product ever, and it's worthless if nobody sees it. That's where I come in. I run TitanScouting.com. Titan Scouting is an athlete marketing service. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I make sure that athletes get exposure. Inexpensive and thorough. I work incredibly hard. I make sure that you guys get out to all the coaches, as many coaches as possible, to make sure that they know who you are. You get exposure, you get on their radar, and then they have you on their list. So when it comes to recruiting, they'll say, oh, I remember this kid, and they'll reach out to you if they're interested. That's what I do. I make sure they know who you are. It's very hard work, but I don't mind doing it because it helps athletes get a home. You contact me, TitanScouting.com, or go to Instagram, Titan Scouting, or Recruit Boss. One of those two, you can find me there. Message me, let me know what you want. We'll get you started. We'll customize your package for you. And then once you're locked in, we'll make sure that not only will I talk to coaches for you, but I will also guide you through the recruiting process and kind of be a go-between. I don't do negotiations. I'm not an agent. I'm just here to help you get exposure, get a deal, and get into college. That's what I want to do. Find you a home so you can play at the next level. Contact me, TitanScouting.com, and I'll help you know your goal. The scene, the college football scene now, the atmosphere is very different with name, image, and likeness and people making a lot of money. And it changes the way athletes present themselves or can present themselves and think about themselves. So when you get a lot of money and a lot of accolades, whether you deserve them or not, it can tend to affect you mentally. And you start thinking, you start believing your own press. I see it a lot in high school athletes. Not too much, but enough, where I call them a legend in your own neighborhood. you're a big deal in the local paper. You're a big deal in the local scene. You're a big deal against local teams. But you have to compare yourself to athletes nationwide. And we're talking about a million different kids are playing high school football, okay? And of those million kids, how do you compete with the players in the big areas, California, Texas, Florida specifically, okay? Midwest, where they breed football players, where they have nice weather all year round to condition these players. How do you match up? And your local press can inflate your ego to make you think that you're better than you are. And a lot of parents, like Deion Sanders, they overinflate the value of their athletes. I see that all the time. And when you have a parent that does that, that sets, there's good expectations and then there are unreal expectations. And for years, and again, I've been recruiting athletes for over 20 years, I've had parents, there are three different types of parents. You have parents who are realistic, and not many of them. That's the middle piece. They're the ones that undersell, oversell, or are realistic. The undersell parents, they're easier to work with. I can get them some deals and help them realize, like, your kid's not as bad as you think. Sometimes it's hard. I had an athlete whose father, the kid was a defensive player out of Council Rock North years ago, and probably around 2013. And his father hired me to do marketing for him. So I got him out to schools, and he ended up getting an offer, like right away, from Western Michigan. And I said to his father, okay, we still have more to go. And his father said, no, we're done. I said, what do you mean you're done? He said, well, we have a deal. I said, that's not the only deal that we want you to have. We want to have more deals for you. He says, well, I'll bet you at dinner that you don't get my kid another deal. And I said, in my head, I'm going, well, either you don't think your kid is good enough or you question my ability to do my job. So I said, okay, fine, no problem. So I kept working it. And the father just wanted to be done. And I ended up getting University of Texas El Paso came in and offered him a full ride. Now, he had the offer from Western Michigan, full ride offer from UTEP, okay? The father ignored the coach from UTEP, ignored him when he contacted him several times to make the offer. And I called the father and said, why are you ignoring this coach? He says, well, the coach from Western Michigan said that if we talk to any other schools, he's going to think we're not serious and he's going to pull the offer. And I said to the father, have you looked at the offer sheet for Western Michigan? And he said, oh, no. I said, okay, they've offered like 57 different kids and about, 12 to 16 different defensive linemen. So are they not going to offer other people as well as your kid? Because they want your kid to not talk to anybody else and scare him into taking a deal. But they're going to offer other kids, including the 3-star, 4-star athletes, right? They're trying to get whoever they can get. And they're going to go for the best of the best. That's what they do. So they scared your kid into making it, scared you and your kid into not taking another deal or talking to another school. And then he ended up losing a full ride deal in Texas. They're both non-bowl qualifying teams at the time, but still in Texas, for a Texas school to want a kid from PA, that's huge, right? Long story short, the young man ended up doing nothing at Western Michigan, nothing. I went and checked back on his roster, nothing. I don't even know if he stayed on the team or what. I don't know what happened. But the thing is, the parent undersold his kid so much, didn't believe in his kid's ability, and then got scared into taking the first offer that came across his desk. That's the wrong way. Then there's other parents who oversell, who think their kids are straight Division I and they don't believe anybody else and they don't listen to you and they think that you don't know what you're talking about. And then they're hit with the very harsh dose of reality that their kid's not as good as they think. Example, a quarterback that I was working with back in about 2008, very talented quarterback, about 6 foot tall. And then back then it wasn't so bad to be 6 foot tall. I mean, Shadeur Sanders is 6 foot tall, but this kid was about barely 6 foot tall. Let's put it that way. But he was a very talented quarterback. So I kept hitting the parents I did a recruiting video for their son before, and I was going to do one for his senior year. I said, look, we got to get one done. We got to get one done. And they kept putting it off. And we're going to wait to the end of the season. Their son gets hurt going into the playoffs, couldn't play in the championship game, hurt his foot. So he was out of the mix, didn't get that big stage. Okay. Finally, the parents came up to me and in January of his senior year said that my favorite thing that I like to hear, they said, we don't know what we're talking about. I said, we don't know what we're doing. That's what we don't know what we're doing. I'm like, good. Now that you admitted it, now I can help you. Because they thought the Division I's were going to come flocking because of all the press that they got. Their son was getting all the legend in your own neighborhood, article after article after article about their son, but he wasn't good enough on the grand stage. He wasn't as big as they thought he was. So I had to rush. I got the video together and I got him out there and I pushed him out there. He ended up getting a Division I AA FCS deal with Marist, which was good. He ended up going in there and he did very, very well there until he got hurt again, which ended his career. But he was a good kid and a very talented athlete. And I hated to see him missing opportunities. But the parents, who are nice people, wouldn't get out of their own way. They thought that they had it all figured out. And overconfidence in your kid can kill you, as well as underconfidence in your kid. And then there's very few who are realistic. Deion Sanders, he's known to be a very arrogant dude. I mean, I met the guy when I was a security guard back in college. It's jackass. I mean, he was a jackass to everybody. He was rude to everybody. I mean, I'm not going to mince words. He was rude to everybody. So I didn't care for him at all. Most baseball players were very nice, but I can count on pretty much one hand of all the players that I met who were very rude. And he was one. And that's just his nature. Could be a nice guy. Could be. But from what I've seen on the field and off the field and heard him in interviews, he's arrogant. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And you can step over that line. And we're going to get to that about Shadeur Sanders and how it could affect you as athletes. So Deion Sanders, as you heard in that last clip, and let me see if I can go back and play it again, he said that he has certain places where he thinks his kid can play. Let me see if we pick it up right here. Hold on.
Now, all this is subjective because I know where I want them to go. Mm-hmm. And let's not forget Shallow, okay? Mm-hmm. But I know where I want them to go. So there's certain cities that ain't gonna happen.
Okay, you on point.
It's gonna be it's gonna be an Eli.
Now he's referencing Eli Manning, which we're going to talk about in a second. So there are certain schools, certain teams he doesn't want him to go to. Now, Deion Sanders knows, unlike a high school parent, okay, he knows the market. He's played for a number of teams. He's worked for a number of teams. He's been on broadcasts, and he knows owners of teams, and he knows the organizations and how they work. So he can make that judgment. But the problem is that his son isn't Deion Sanders. His son is Shadeur Sanders. Is he a talented quarterback? Yeah. Does he have problems? Oh, yeah. I mean, besides being undersized, he's got issues. One of the biggest issues that I saw was he was sacked 42 times in one season. This past season, 42 times. That tells me he either holds on to the ball too long, can't scramble, can't read defenses, can't pick up the blitz, doesn't know how to adjust. It can't all be line. And I was lineman. I'll blame the lineman for a lot of stuff, but if you're a lineman, you got about 3-4 seconds to hold. That's why the quick release of a quarterback is so important. You may be 3 or 4 seconds to stop a defensive player before they can get off of you. It's very hard to do it. I mean, you figure each average play in high school is about 8 seconds from snap to finish, right? About 8 seconds. And in those 8 seconds, about half of those, if you get to 4 seconds as a lineman, that's very, very good to block somebody and keep them off the quarterback. That quarterback needs to get rid of that ball quickly, quick release, quick read, check off your receivers, get it downfield, avoid stay in the pocket or know when to get out of the pocket, when to roll out. Shadeur Sanders getting sacked 42 times is for me, huge red flag, but there are other flags as well. So Shadeur Sanders is not Deion. He doesn't have the reputation of Deion. He's got daddy, but son is not daddy. And first you have to go, lesson 1, first you go along, then you get along. Okay? First you go along, then you get along. No matter where you are, in whatever level of sports, You're going to go from one, and in business, you're going to go from one level to another level, but more specifically sports. You're a high school player, you're a freshman, you're nothing. You ascend and rise up the ladder, and you get to a good position. You're a starter, you're playing, you're contributing, and you have value. You get drafted or recruited, you get signed by a school, you go to a college. Guess what? You're a freshman again. Either you're going to be redshirted and you're not going to play, but you're going to practice and work out, or you're going to go in and ride the pine for a while and earn your keep. Very few freshmen that go into college play right away and really contribute. Very few. So you have to go along with the system, learn the coaches, play the game, learn their offenses, learn their defenses, build your body up, get stronger, get your grades up. You have to go along to get along. And as you go along, then you ascend again. And now you're a junior, senior, and you're actually earning your bones, okay? And you're really contributing. After you get out of college, if you get drafted by an NFL team, you start all over again. And you're now a rook. You're the rookie, all right? You get mocked by the guys. You have to do all the dirty work. And you have to earn your way up the ladder once again. But prior to the NFL, there's the draft. And the draft is a totally different animal altogether because you basically are going from college to the draft to the NFL. So you have to get through that big set of gatekeepers first. And when you get to the draft, the draft process, you have combines that you have to work out. And I've heard that Sanders didn't go to a number of combines. He turned down, or didn't go to the combine, or didn't turn down workouts for teams. I think it was turned down workouts for teams. Okay. So he turned down workouts for teams. He went to the combine. He interviewed with the coaches at the combine, and a lot of feedback that came out, most of it anonymous, were that he didn't interview very well. Now, Tony Dungy was on let me find that. Tony Dungy was on a show with NBC, okay? And in this interview, he talks about what he learned about Shadeur Sanders during the interview process. Let's listen on this.
This feels like the right place to do it to me because he slides all the way to the 5th round, and there's 1,000,001 theories as to how and why this could have happened. And Coach, one of the theories that gets brought up a lot is the interview process and that he didn't interview well with these teams. Take us inside that interview process and what that's like. What kind of questions? What's the dynamic? How does that all go down?
Yeah, and basically at the combine, you have 15 minutes to sit with the guys and you want to find out about them. And then the guys you're really interested in, you're going to go on campus or you're going to get somewhere and talk to them and interview with them. Shadeur didn't talk to everybody. And that to me was a mistake, number one. And then number two, you have to go sell yourself and you have to make people comfortable with you. I can remember we drafted Dallas Clark in the 1st round and we flew him in that night. And he was the most surprised person in the world because he said, Coach, you talked to me for 15 minutes at the combine. You never asked me one question about football. All you asked about was my family and growing up and what I wanted to do after football's over. I thought you were just blowing me off. I said, Dallas, that's what I wanted to find out. If you're going to be a great teammate, if you're going to be a Colt personality, that's what teams want to know. And that's what they want to figure out, Rod.
There you go. So Shadeur Sanders didn't want to talk to everybody. Wrong. No, that's not how you do it. You have to be open to everybody. I don't care if you don't want to go to certain teams. I know Dion knows certain teams are not where he wants to play. But you can't turn down any team until you have a deal. Next lesson to the college athlete or high school athletes. You cannot turn down anybody. If you go to a bar or a club and you're looking at the hot girl at the club, right? Say Margot Robbie is there in front of you. This is the analogy I love to use. There's Margot Robbie. I want to go home with Margot Robbie. She's my girl. She's my girl. The problem is that everybody else wants to go with Margot Robbie. Let's say the Eagles are the Super Bowl champions right now, right? Everyone wants to play for the Eagles. Let's just say they do. I want to all play for the Eagles. Now, they're all focused on them, but they're ignoring other teams. There's teams next to them that are good, like the Washington Commanders. If we go stay in the NFC East, they're a good team. They're not the Eagles, right? Then you also have the Dallas Cowboys. They're a good team, but they're not the Eagles. It's kind of like Dallas Cowboys are Jennifer Lawrence and Margot Robbie of the Eagles. You know, there's the hot girl at the club, and then Jennifer Lawrence is standing right there. And Jennifer Lawrence, she's attractive, but she's not Margot Robbie. But you're ignoring Jennifer Lawrence because you're focused too much on Margot Robbie. And now you have the Giants, who are doing terrible, okay? Giants, Browns, other teams that don't have good records, yes? And a good history. Those teams are the using a men to women thing, since it's guys that are playing football. Those are the women at the club who you don't really pay attention to because they're kind of plain Janes, right? They're not quite top tier. Well, if they're not good enough looking for you, but they're still attractive in their own way, you're ignoring them, and they're going to remember that you ignored them all night long because you were focused on Margot Robbie and or Jennifer Lawrence. And then when it comes down to it, and they have to go home with someone, they're not going to pick you. They're going to get somebody else who they've already been hoping to get later. And you, in your desperation, will say, well, I'll just settle. Whoever can take me at this point. That's what happened with Shadeur Sanders. His father thought he was top 4 in the NFL draft. Okay? He believed his own press so much. And his father is a hype master. He's very good at hype, self-promotion, always was, called himself Primetime. Deion Sanders sold himself like crazy, played 2 sports. I can't argue the guy was talented. So he knows how to sell, and he knew how to sell his kid. Problem is, if you sell yourself too much, then you overinflate your ego and overinflate your brand. And then you start thinking that you can pick who you want to pick instead of going with who is going to pick you. And Shadeur Sanders got a major dose of humility. He just did. He was thinking he was first round, then he keeps dropping and dropping. And people will say, well, it was collusion. The NFL coaches. Well, it's a business, guys. When you're in the business world, if you have a reputation, that reputation precedes you. Look at Hollywood. Actors are problems in Hollywood. They don't work because other studios will not hire them because they have a reputation for being a problem or being arrogant. All right? If they're difficult to work with, they don't want to deal with it. I mean, in the Army, it was the same way. When I was in the Army, I got to Fort Hood, Texas, out of Hawaii. I was stationed in Hawaii. All right? That's a light infantry division. Okay, I went to a mech infantry division in Texas, the 4th Infantry Division. I was supposed to be the signal officer for the division, right? Division SIGO. I was excited about that. I get called into the G1's office, General Staff. He's the guy that hands out the assignments. And he said, Captain Roberts, we're going to change you. We're moving you out of the division signal officer position to 110th Cavalry. Now, 110th Cav was like the biggest unit on the base, 775 guy unit. They were mech infantry, attack aviation, and armor, all right? Huge. And there were Force 21, which is that high futuristic advanced technology testing, right? I said, sir, does it matter? I said, why am I going there? And he said to me, they requested you by name. I'm like, who the hell knows me in Texas? They know your rep. They know that how you work. They know what you can do. And I didn't realize till I got to the job why I was chosen. Because in my past, I was a guy who would go into a broken system and I'd fix it. I would go into the system, I'd fix it from the ground up. So it was like there was an A and there was a C, but there was no B in the middle. So I would fix that, create a B, and I'd get it functioning. So if I left the job, which you leave after about a year when you're in the Army and you're an officer, then the next person can slide in and it would still work. So if I died in combat, for example, my soldiers could still run the show until they got a new captain, okay? So when I got to that unit, I saw that it was broken. They had A and they had a C. They had no B. I said, oh, God, there's no structure here. So now I understand. Now I have to fix it. That was my job. That was my rep because I'd fixed systems in every single unit I had been in all the way through Hawaii. So your rep gets carried forward. But if you're not doing well, you're not going to get the gigs. That's just how it happens. The reputation precedes you. If you're a high school player and you're trouble and you have a bad attitude, that reputation will kill you. Example, I had one athlete, 2010, talented athlete, incredibly talented athlete, great running back, but his attitude was absolutely horrible. He was trouble. He was aggressive. He was disrespectful in many ways. And I marketed him to colleges, and I got him a ton of Division I's were interested in him. The problem is there's a gatekeeper in high school, and that gatekeeper is your head coach. So if you have a problem with your head coach, these schools are going to come talk to your head coach face to face, and they're going to ask him, or they're going to call him on the phone. What do you think about this kid? And the coach can easily say, I wouldn't touch him. He's trouble. I wouldn't touch him. I don't like him. They could do that. They can easily do that. And yes, there's favoritism in high school. Yes, there is. Believe me, I've been a victim of it. Okay? Coaches have their favorites. In high school, my coach had his favorite. I know what it was. We all saw it. Okay? So I had to kind of fend for myself in a lot of ways in terms of recruiting. But this coach killed this kid, had no opportunities. Ended up going to Division III because of his attitude. So when you have a bad attitude, it comes across. And when you're someone like Shadeur Sanders and you see the scouting reports that he was disinterested, that he was detached, he wasn't paying attention, he wasn't prepared, he didn't read the playbook, whatever it was, that trickles down. And people hear it and they go, oh, wait a second, that's not good news. I don't want him. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put up with a kid like this because that's going to be cancerous. Then there's also the baggage of his dad, okay? Then there's the rumors that went around that Deion Sanders wanted to have a say in how the team handled his son. There was that thing. It was a lot of bravado. It doesn't surprise me if that's the case. If that's the case, it doesn't, because Deion Sanders is, that's just his make. That's his MO right there, his arrogance, okay? So if he comes across and he said that, and you're a coach, you had nothing to do with that athlete. I'll bring you back to another example. Same athlete, that quarterback we talked about before, okay? I was talking to the University of Delaware coach about him. I said, what do you think about this kid? And he goes, I'm never going to touch him. I said, he's a talented kid. He says, doesn't matter. I'm not touching him because his father sends me articles. This is back before email, like a lot of emails and stuff. He said he'll fax me articles all the time about his kid constantly. He said, I don't want to deal with a parent like that. He's going to be too involved, and I don't need a parent putting his hands in my business. Once your kid goes to college, he signs a deal, he's an adult. It's the coach's responsibility to work with that kid, not the parent. Parent's out. I had another parent, athlete who was went to Wisconsin, another talented quarterback, right? He was like 6'3", tall, really good quarterback, okay? Threw for like 20 interceptions his senior year, which hurt his value a bit, but we had schools interested. Stanford, Rutgers, well, Rutgers had a guy already. Other schools were interested in this kid, and Wisconsin was interested in him. Now, his mother was very, very hands-on, and I warned her. I got to know these people very well, and I warned her. I said, you really don't want to put your hands on the situation. You got to stay out of it. Well, he's my son. I said, trust me, the coaches don't want that. So the mother moved out to Wisconsin to be with her son, okay? They lived in their own apartment together. She worked, from what I heard, she worked night shift. He was at school for day shift. So she'd come back from work, she'd take the bed. It was a one-bedroom place. She'd stay in the bed, he'd go to school, he'd come back, she'd go to work, he'd be in bed. And they would just swap out that way. Well, apparently, she had gone to the coach's office one time to express her displeasure that he wasn't playing enough. He was a freshman. He had to earn his bones, go along to get along. She did it the first time. They warned her not to do it. She did it a second time. And from what I heard, he was pretty much blacklisted by the coaches and he wasn't going to play. And he was way down the bench at that point, in which case he had to leave the school. He chose to leave the school, ended up going to, I think, Towson or something. I don't know. I think that's where he ended up. But that's the problem. Helicopter parents. Lesson to athletes, lessons to parents. Parents, shut up. Shut up. I know it's your kid. No one's going to love your kid more than you do. But when it comes to college recruiting, zip it. You're there for negotiation. You're there to help solidify the deal and give guidance to your kid and protect them from bad juju. But you don't want to overstep your bounds, say too much. And if you have questions about that, you can always talk to me about it because I've been doing it for a very long time. And I've been able to kind of calm parents down a bit so they don't say something stupid. You can say it to me first, run it past me, and then I'll go, I don't think I would do that if I were you. And the smart ones listen. Okay? So there's another issue. Helicopter parent, Deion Sanders. Now, then there's the issue of believing your own press. We're on that again, right? So let's look at what Shadeur Sanders had to say in this interview from Giant. This is posted on Giants Now social.
NFL franchise.
Whoops, let me start here. Here we go.
That's the plan. If that's not what you're trying to do, don't get me. If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't get me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over. And I've done it over and over and over. So it should be no question why an NFL franchise should pick me.
If you don't want to change your system, if you don't believe in what I do, then don't get me. You never tell a team, I don't want to work for you. You're already cutting off their nose to spite your face. Are you serious? I don't want to deal with you. I'm done. They're going to say, okay, see ya. Right after, if I heard that as a coach, I'm checking out. I know, believe me, I know athletes who have done stuff like that in high school, and coaches said, I'm done. I mean, I had a kid who was given an offer by a school. He said to the coach, I don't want to play for you. Coach took his paperwork, tore it up, threw it away. A couple months go by. Now the kid's desperate because the one school that really wanted him, that was the only school. And you don't think coaches talk? College coaches talk. They talk good, they talk bad. I had a player I was working with, Tom Flacco, brother of Joe Flacco. Father came to me September of his senior year. I had interviewed Tom for a video, promotional video for the Olympic Conference. And I asked him, said, how's, breaking the ice, how's your recruiting going? Figured he's set. He goes, well, I don't really have much of anything. This school wants me to be a safety, and I'm trying to get to Delaware, which is where his brother went, but I'm not getting anything from that. So I gave him my card and said, if you need help, contact me, let me know. Middle of September, senior year, late as hell for a quarterback, and I get notified. His father calls me up and says, I want you to market my kid. Okay, custom package. I went through and had to look at every offer sheet for any team that had a quarterback that was similar to his size. He was only about 6 foot, but he was an amazingly talented player. Should have had a better recruiting video. He put it together himself. It was like too long, too much. That's something I could have helped him with, but we didn't have time for me to redo the video. So I marketed him. Compared him, again, watched all the film for other quarterbacks that were like him. Got him out to the schools. I heard back from Marshall on him, right? Most of your teams had offers. So Marshall had an offer. They came back to me and said, look, we have an offer to a kid already, but we're going to look at this film and we're going to make our evaluation. So they were thinking about it. 3 days later, I get a call back and they said, look, we really like him, but we made a commitment to our guy and we're going to stick with it, which I respect. They said, but here's where coaches talk well. But we're going to send him to Purdue, to Tennessee University, Tennessee Tech, and Tennessee, Tennessee Chattanooga. Those are the three schools. We're going to send it to those schools because we know they're looking for quarterbacks. So he helped them out. Coaches talk. They talk good. They talk bad. You have done nothing as a high school player. Nothing. And in college, you haven't done much either when it comes to NFL players. As far as they're concerned, you are one of many. You're one of many. You need them more than they need you, unless you're like a superior talent, like Cam Ward, who went number 1. Okay? We'll talk about that in a second. So, how you represent yourself carries over. Right? There's your personality, there's your attitude, right? Your arrogance, which is like, oh, well, they don't pick me. Then they're not gonna, and you're gonna end up going to fifth round. And then there's also how you present yourself personally. Okay, look at here. I'm going to pull up a picture here. Look at this photo of Shadeur Sanders. Okay, he had his draft party. Well, let's start off by watching this video of his draft. Where is his draft room? He had a little draft room. Okay, so let's take a look at this draft room. This is his custom draft room. All right, let's watch this. Hey, he built or had a room built, spent money to have this room built. He's got all these hats lined up. He's got this little room. He's got legendary all over the walls. He's got a $ squared as his logo, which tells me as a coach, this is what this tells me as a coach. It tells me, 1, he thinks he's worth more than he really is. 2, you don't call yourself legendary until you actually are legendary. 3, if you're saying $ squared, you're all about the money and not about the team. 4, you're not going to represent my team well. You're just not. I mean, when you got this custom made, I think he spent like $100,000 on that giant custom made. Look. This picture of this picture right here. Look at that custom made amulet, the legendary logo. Calls himself legendary. You spent all your money on that. You're blinging yourself out. You haven't earned anything yet. You haven't. I don't care if Colorado University has retired your number because your daddy wanted them to. There's other players that were way more worthy of having their number retired. Not Shadeur Sanders and his 42 sacks. It doesn't play. He didn't even get a championship for them. But daddy said we're going to retire his number. And they did. That's ridiculous. Coaches see that. They say hubris, arrogance. We don't want anything to do with a kid like this because he's just going to put himself over the team and we don't need that. Okay? But when you dress like that, you're supposed to represent, you're representing yourself too. But not, you're representing yourself. Now think about this. When you're going to go to college and meet a coach, you dress respectfully. You represent yourself. When I was in high school, I had a coach who was my track coach, my favorite coach in high school. My favorite coach. He was a great guy. His name was Jim Doyle. All respect to Jim. Rest in peace. Love the man. And he would work with me all the time, and I did shot put. And he was a mentor to me. And he also chose me, instead of other coaches who have the vote, popularity vote for team captain, he actually chose me to be the captain of the weight division because I worked hard and I had the work ethic. And he saw that in me. He saw that I was a good person. Okay. And I respect that. So I went back to visit my high school Thanksgiving Day game. I was at West Point at the time. I came back and I saw the coach, and I was wearing slacks and a sweater, and I represented myself nicely. And the reason I say that phrase is because that's what he said to me. He saw me, I gave him a big hello, shook his hand, very nice, cordial meeting, and he looked at me and he went, "You represent yourself well." And I went, wow, I'd never heard that phrase before, but it stuck with me. Lesson to athletes, represent yourself well. The image that people see of you every day, in school, out of school, that's what coaches, that will impress people. That's what coaches want to see. If they're coming to visit you at a school and you're walking around looking like a schlub, they're going to notice. If you're on the sideline and you're not performing properly, if you're not behaving properly, if you're not motivated, you don't have to oversell, just be yourself. If you're not motivated, you're not engaged, you're not into the game, you're not with the coach, standing by the coach when you're not in, you're not being a leader. How you carry yourself on the field and off the field make a huge difference to schools. How you represent yourself. And when you see a college coach, you show up dressed the right way. Represent yourself well. Look, I don't care if you wear sweats and torn up t-shirt or for crying out for booty shorts on your own if you're off on your own. I don't care. But when you're with that coach, here's what the coach sees. He sees a person who respects himself or herself. I usually don't have to say this to the ladies because the ladies usually take care of them. They represent themselves well. But he sees I'll say young man. So to a young man, this young man respects himself and how he looks. He respects the school for whom he plays, and he's going to respect my school when he plays for me. That's what you want to present. Well, I got to play the game. Yep, you got to play the game. You go along to get along. That's how it is. First you go along, then you get along. So you got to dance. You got to play the game. You got to do the right thing. Dress the right way. Act the right way. Behave yourself. Temper your attitude if you have one. Control your behavior. If you're very street, right? Work that out. Don't let the guys around you who are not going to succeed and not going to go to college, right? The guys who you're going to come back in 10 years are going to be doing the same thing they did when you were in high school. Don't let them adversely affect how you represent yourself. Oh man, you're not keeping it real. Oh man, you're just playing the game. You're dancing for the man. Yeah, I am. Yeah, because we all have to. We all have to get where we need to be. There's not one successful person in this world who did not play the game in some capacity or another to make sure that they achieved their goals. That's just how it is. That's why know your goal is our company motto and my motto. Know your goal. You know what your goal is? Aspire for it. You have to work your ass off and do what it takes to achieve your goal. Period. Shadeur Sanders, he achieved it on the field, except for 42 sacks. But when it came to representing himself, who they saw at the combine, when he said he didn't want to talk to certain people or he was disengaged in that 15-minute interview, that's who they saw. When they see the legendary room, when they see him with the bling on and him being disrespectful with his hat on backwards and sideways. Backwards is one thing. Backwards and sideways kind of doesn't look that great. That tells them a lot. Example, I had an athlete came to my office, 2012. Father brought him in, good kid, okay? But he had a lot of attitude. And the coach said, oh, he's got a lot of attitude. He's going to be a problem. I said, no, he's not that bad. After I got done working with him. So he came in my office. Good kid. I'll leave the names out, but a good kid. He came into the office and I said, okay, first things first. I met him and I went to shake his hand and he was looking down, give me a limp shake. I said, no, first things first. You look me in the eyes, you shake my hand firmly because that is my first impression of you. How you shake your hand and look me in the eye. That's what I want to see. Okay. That's the first step. I said, the next thing, I said, take your hat, take it off because you're in the office with me. Thirdly, pull up your pants. Represent yourself well. Then we went back in my office and we sat down and he was sitting in a chair. He was all laid back. And I said, are you resting? He was like, oh, no. I said, then sit up and show respect because you represent yourself. You're giving respect to the person to whom you're talking. Carry yourself properly and always have something to write with. And he listened. He started to behave himself. Then it came time for a game, and he was performing very well this one game, performed very, very well, but he had an outburst. He got very upset. He threw his helmet. And it turns out that at that game, Lafayette University was there, and the coach saw that. And the minute they saw that, they were gone. That was it. I'm done. They checked out because they don't want a player that's going to do that on their team. That's just how it is. So how you carry yourself makes a big difference. How you represent yourself makes a huge difference. In terms of interviews, we had a player, I'll name names on this one, named Mike Daniels. Mike Daniels went to the NFL, right? We worked with him, got him University of Iowa. No one, he had like Villanova was interested in him, but didn't have a whole lot of other stuff. He came to me middle of December of senior year. We marketed him like crazy in a rush. Like, holy crap, man, it's so late. We pushed him. All of a sudden, we had a lot of schools that were suddenly interested in this kid because he was a very talented athlete, okay? He ended up getting a full ride from University of Iowa, like a couple days before the signing day, which was amazing. Then he ended up going to the Combine. Now, he couldn't perform at the Combine because he had shoulder surgery, and he couldn't play in the Senior Bowl where he was invited because of the same thing, all right? He had played injured during his bowl game. So he goes to the Combine, and all he did, he said, I just interviewed. Like I only interviewed with a team. He talked to a team. It was Green Bay. He talked with them. And he said it was a personal interview. But the thing is he's a class act, and he represented himself well. And they saw that. They didn't see arrogance, hubris, none of that. They saw what they liked about his character in that interview. It told them what they needed. And come draft, 4th round, 132nd overall, he was picked and got drafted. That was it. He wasn't projected to go much higher than that. We were thinking probably maybe 3rd if we're lucky, but probably 4th round. And he got it. And he got a deal. Okay? That's representing yourself well. Sanders didn't do that. Also, if you look at him, okay, look at Shadeur Sanders and that picture here again. Now, let's look at Cam Ward. See a big disparity there? Look at the difference. Cam Ward, hat on front ways, nice suit, nice clean, tailored, very nice professional look. Your NFL team, and compare it again to Shadeur Sanders. Shadeur Sanders, Cam Ward. If you're an NFL team, your quarterback is the top spot. Your quarterback is the brand ambassador. He is your team in one person. Your quarterback's going to represent everything about you, especially in the NFL. So if you're a team and you have a person like Cam Ward, I'm going to want him to represent my team because he represents himself well. There's your point. And I've heard that Cam Ward is a 0-star athlete. 0 stars. Whereas Shadeur had several stars, right? 4-star or whatever it was. Yeah. I have another show about the star rating system, which is basically bullshit. It is. On 3 Sports, 24/7 Sports, Rivals, ESPN. It's just sports writers who have their opinions on players. And they don't rate all the players. They rate specific ones that they know they can give the stars to. We'll talk about that another time. Maybe I'll do a short video on that or a longer video. But the star rating system, I have personal experience from that, and it's BS. BS. Case in point, Cam Ward. So that's the thing. How you represent yourself makes a big difference. How you perform on field is a big, huge part of you getting recruited. But there's a whole other component to it. There's academics, which are top most important. Okay? They're huge for schools because they don't want to have to fight that obstacle. They want to make sure you can handle the curriculum in college. So if you can handle the curriculum, good. Then there's how you perform on the field. But then there's you. You're selling yourself as an athlete. How you look, how you dress, how you carry yourself, how you enunciate, are you intelligent? Are you engaging? Or do you sit there with your face in your phone? Like one of the scouts said that Shadeur Sanders took a FaceTime call during an interview. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'll tell you what, from personal experience, coach from UTEP was up visiting. I facilitated a meeting between him and a couple other players from another school. All right. We were neutral location. They came, they sat down, they talked with him a little bit. And one of them was engaged the entire time. The other one, his phone kept blowing up and he kept looking at his phone. And the coach stopped and went, "You got to answer that? Go ahead." And the kid picked up his phone and answered it. Answered the text while meeting a coach. And I went, oh, dear God. Well, needless to say, that kid, coach was no longer interested. Other kid, coach was. There you go. There you go. This was a long time ago. This was like, again, 2012. But it was what it was. That's how it was. That was 2014. But still, it makes a big difference. You're engaged. You're talking to the person, looking them in the eye. You're respectful. You're hearing what they're saying, and you're responding in kind. So it's simple. First you go along, then you get along. That involves playing on the field, conditioning off the field, academics, and your own personal character. Represent yourself well. That's why, predominantly, I believe Shadeur Sanders fell 4 rounds to the 5th. Had nothing to do with race, because Cam Ward's a black quarterback and he was number 1 overall. Nothing to do with that. Had everything else to do with who he presented himself as. And probably a little bit of his dad. Okay. That's my information on this. I hope it helped you out. If you have any questions, let me know. If you don't agree with me, leave a comment. That's fine. No problem. Hope you learned something. Thanks for listening. For the ProZone, I'm Matt Roberts. Know your goal. Hey guys, thank you for watching the ProZone. Make sure you check back for more episodes. And if you haven't done so already, like, share, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss what we have coming up next.